Marita is with us in Syracuse, New York. Hi, Marita. How are you?
Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Sure. Can you speak directly into your phone? It's pretty muffled.
Yes, is that better?
Yes,
Perfect.
yes, thank you.
All right, awesome. So I have a question about student loans. Yay, I have many emotions about what Biden declared today, but I'll try and get to the point. My husband and I were in our early 20s. We have $2,375 left to pay off on our student loans. We have worked so hard to get to this point. Now Biden's declared that he can just forgive it at some point. But we know there's a period of time before that's going to happen. Would it be the right thing to do out of principle to just pay it off on our own? Or should we apply for forgiveness once that application becomes available to us?
Write a check and pay it off. Don't wait.
Okay.
Don't wait. Um, the emotion here is so mixed about the call today and what they announced. And I think the heart behind it is relief. Well, we can probably go all around, but I think there's an element of it that is to relieve people, and you guys don't need relief because you have the money. And you guys, I mean, and there is a personal responsibility thing with all of this too, that you guys, signed this, and your names are on it, and the idea of taking money from the government when you have it, I can't. That doesn't sit well. Doesn't sit well with me. So I'd rather check and pay it off. Don't wait on them. That's a nice way of saying it.
Marita, you already knew that was what you wanted to do because it's who you are by the way you phrased your question. And so it makes it very easy for us to just agree with you and say, yeah, I would do that. It's not immoral for someone to take the relief that is being offered, but there is a moral obligation that you borrowed the money, and to pay it back is a values-based decision, even though you quote don't have to unquote. It's a values-based decision, and you know. So, on a macro level, on a nationwide level, on a big scope, somewhere we have to remind people that the money comes from the government, comes from somewhere. And the $300 billion with a B, a billion is 1,000 million. That is 300,000 million that the president is strutting around proud that he just added to the taxpayer's burden. If you are a taxpayer, and 48% of you are not in America today, a federal income taxpayer, but for those of us that are, our burden was just increased by 300,000 million so that you could get $10,000 in debt forgiveness. I'm happy for you if you got your debt forgiveness. I really don't want bad things for you. I want good things for you, and I'm not angry with you. You didn't do anything out there if you got debt forgiveness. But the absurdity of this political move as a Hail Mary to try to get back in the graces of the voters before the midterms in a presidential administration that is a complete economic failure, it's just infuriating. And it's all put on the backs of your grandchildren because it's all added to the deficit. $30 trillion in debt already. And we add 300,000 million to that in student loan forgiveness while we continue to make student loans. And this is it's just intellectually dishonest to continue to make the loans and on the one hand and then turn around and forgive them on the next. Because the next call we're going to be getting, we're going to get this call because it's already running through some of your heads. I've got $26,000 in student loan debt. President Biden just forgave 10. I'm going to wait on him to forgive the rest. Is that okay? Even though there's no announcement of that or indication of that or promise of that, but once you've opened the spigot, folks are going to expect you to continue to open the spigot. Like Trump issued bucks during the Trump dollars during COVID, and then another set, and then Biden bucks came out, and Biden bucks and Biden bucks. So once all of your COVID problems were going to be solved by the government instead of by your own hand, then you now are waiting on these Biden bucks to come through after the Trump bucks, after the Biden bucks, after the Trump bucks, and it just keeps going and going and going and going because you've begun to look at Washington, D.C. as your source.
When we were getting those questions, and we've gotten that question for over a decade. I feel like every politician makes some kind of debt for student loan forgiveness.
Well, and it was the fringe. It was Elizabeth Warren and AOC. It was the fringe wackos that were suggesting it at first, and then it got a little bit more mainstream. And this president is so far left, so far much a socialist in his approach to things that, he had it on a campaign promise. Took him 18 months in office to come through with a campaign promise.
But the idea is that
during the 18 months.
But also, even just the idea of student loan forgiveness that's been floating around for almost a decade. We've heard that term because in very small pockets, right? You see different things, but we get those calls even then. Like, this is actual facts on paper that it's happening. But even just the idea, to your points, floats in people's heads, and when that seed is planted, it's this idea that I'm going to just sit back.
It turns you into a trust fund baby.
And there's a
Yeah. I mean, if your dad is 60 years old and he's got $10 million and you don't work much and you want to just sit around and wait on him to die for you to have a life because you're going to you're going to inherit $10 million. It's the same dadgum thing. I'm sitting around waiting on someone else to fix my life.
Yes, right. The mindset is the same, but I think the feeling of debt and the weight that debt carries on families, though, is different than I just want to be lazy and hammer. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like,
I agree.
So I get what you're saying, but also I'm like, man, there's like this.
But when you say, okay, I'm not going to deal with this,
right, and I'm going to let someone else.
I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to wait on someone else to deal with it, and that's not Marita's.
And what's
question.
interesting too, we talk about this all the time on the show of how money, your habits within money, are a lot of different habits in other areas of your life. And so it's fascinating too if you become passive with your money, sitting back and letting other people take it. Like,
are you then passive in your career?
That's right.
Are you passive
in your marriage and your parent,
like mental health, your
because
physical
you're one
health?
person. You talk about this a lot. Like, you're integer is a whole number. We are, to have integrity, you are a whole person. So you can't take one part of your life and say, I'm going to be like this, and this. Wait, right? Like, we think we can compartmentalize so much, and we can't. We are one person. And so even with that, I mean, I don't have the science to back it, but I am curious.
It's impossible to be highly ambitious, organized, and disciplined in your money and be completely opposite of that in every other area of your life. Or be highly ambitious and disciplined in your career, but be completely undisciplined in your physical.
Because the opposite is true,
work.
And the opposite is true, which we hear all the time. That people are like, "Oh my gosh, my spouse and I, like, we got out of debt, and it changed our marriage because we started communicating." We even hear health, like I lost weight, right? Like all these other things fall into place, and so
our marriage got better because we were working on something
even a seed planted of being passive in life. It's just hard. I mean, I think it just affects other areas too. So you got to be careful. You got to be careful.
Margaret Thatcher said it well. The problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money to give away. It's a problem.